If you've ever read about making natural incense, whether in books or online, you've almost certainly encountered discussions about using mako, or more correctly, taboo no ki, as both a base and a binder for your incense. I've even read on more than one occasion that you can't make incense without taboo no ki. That definitely isn't true. You can make incense using gum binders instead of taboo no ki, which is a wood binder. But there's also another wood base and binder combination like taboo that works just as well, and it's probably more widely used by incense makers outside the USA than taboo is. It's often called Jiggit, but most American incense makers know it as joss powder. Joss powder is awesome for incense making. It works every bit as well as taboo no ki, and it usually costs less. On this edition of Incense Magick, we'll take a look at using joss powder for making many different types of incense, including rolling your own masala-style incense sticks. That's on this edition of Incense Magick. If you've never used a wood binder before to make incense, you will be amazed at how easy it is to roll incense with joss powder. It acts as a binder, which holds the incense together like a type of glue, and it also acts as a base material that helps your incense burn better. All you need to do is take a little bit of joss powder and add your favorite aromatics, like powdered frankincense or patchouli or sandalwood or just about any other aromatic, and then mix the dry ingredients and add a little bit of water, and presto! You have incense dough or clay that can be shaped into virtually any form of incense, including joss sticks, masala sticks, also called agarbati, cones, coils, or just about any other form of self-combusting incense. Although not many incense sellers carry joss powder, it's worth searching for. I sell it on my website, but you can find it from other vendors as well. Just as with taboo no ki, joss powder comes in different grades. The lesser grades can still work well, so I wouldn't reject those out of hand. I also sell a superior grade of joss powder, but honestly, I think the standard grade works every bit as well in most circumstances, although you might have to use slightly more of it than you would with the superior grade. One great thing about joss powder is its price. It usually costs 25% less than taboo no ki. Sometimes it costs a lot less than that. Now, I also like to combine joss powder with taboo powder to make a kind of super wood binder. You'll find both of those binders as well as a gum binder in the Magick Mako blend that's available on my website. If you're new to making natural incense, I think that you'll find Magick Mako is really the perfect starting place before you move on to using pure joss powder or taboo powder, or certainly before you use gum binders. But you can start with pure joss powder if you'd like. Okay, so all of that talk is fine, but why don't we make some incense? Here's a really simple recipe that smells amazing. Combine 2 tablespoons of joss powder with a half a teaspoon of powdered frankincense and a 1/4 teaspoon of powdered myrrh. After you thoroughly mix the ingredients, you want to add a little bit of water. You want to take care not to add too much water, since that'll make it really difficult to shape. You're going to need around 1½ teaspoons of water, or about 8 milliliters. But don't add all that water at once. Add about 2/3 of the water to your incense blend and mix until the water is evenly dispersed. Then you can add water a few drops at a time until you get it to the perfect consistency. You may add up to as much as 15 milliliters in order to get it to where you want. But you should be able to pick it up once you have it all mixed as a single ball of clay. It should have very few cracks on the surface, and when you set it down, it should hold its shape. Obviously, through the magic of video, I have some clay already prepared to show you how versatile joss powder can be. Now, all of these forms of incense that I'm going to show you are made using this recipe that I just gave you. Now first, since this is joss powder, let's make some joss sticks. I've already loaded some incense clay into this extruder. I placed a small tip on the extruder since I want to make Japanese style incense joss sticks. You can see that the incense comes out of the extruder very easily. It's very smooth and it's quick to come out because of its size. It's going to dry quickly, sometimes in just a couple of hours. So I suggest drying on a screen rather than on a board. If sticks don't dry evenly, they tend to curl. Using a drying screen will greatly reduce that problem. You can check out my video on drying incense for more ideas on how to dry with or without a screen. Now I'm going to change out the small tip and we're going to use an extruder that I have loaded with a wide tip. You can use these to make Tibetan style joss sticks, but I really like to turn these sticks into long coils instead. Doing that's as simple as extruding the incense and then forming a coil by hand. The nice thing about coils is that they'll burn for a long time without taking up a lot of space. Dry your coils on a screen, or you can leave them on a board and cover them with plastic wrap for about 5 days or so. The drying time is going to vary depending on the length and the thickness of your coils, but you'll see that the color lightens as it dries. Once the entire coil has reached a lighter color, uncover it and let it dry for about an additional 24 hours, and then it'll be ready to burn. Now you can also hand roll incense with joss powder to make cones. I usually make cones that contain about 1/4 teaspoon of incense clay, but you can make much larger or even smaller cones if you prefer. To roll a cone by hand, I'll measure it out, and then I'll make a rough cone shape by squeezing it between my fingers until I have that rough shape, and then I'll roll the cone back and forth under one finger on the palm of my hand and get that traditional cone shape. Now, of course, if you don't like how your cone came out, you can always just squash it and start over again. Lots of people also really enjoy making what are called backflow cones, where the smoke comes out of the bottom of the cone rather than the top. If you want to make backflow cones, just make a cone normally like we just did, but after flattening the bottom of the cone out, insert a skewer or another object into the bottom of that cone and push it up through the center, but be very careful not to break through the top of the cone. Once this is dry, you can place the backflow cone onto a special incense burner and you can watch as the smoke comes out of the bottom instead of rising out of the top. I like using a nail to do this myself. So how about making a masala or agarbatti stick of incense? That's really simple too. The only additional item that you'll need is a bamboo split to roll the incense onto. Now you can start by extruding a Tibetan style joss stick and then inserting the stick into it, but I find joss powder is really easy to roll by hand. So start by placing a small amount of incense clay onto the split. Here I'm using about 1/2 teaspoon or so. Press it firmly on, and then you're going to gently roll the incense back and forth while moving your fingers up and down the length of the split so that you can evenly disperse the clay. You want to keep working it back and forth until it coats the entire stick. Now you can dry your finished stick in something as simple as a ball of clay. You can just stick it in anything that will hold it up in the air so that there's nothing obstructing it. You could even use an old incense burner if you wanted to. It just needs to hold the entire coated end of the stick up in the air without it touching anything else. So you can see that joss powder is every bit as flexible as taboo no ki. I find it to be a little more elastic. So that's something to keep in mind when choosing between the two. With a good wood binder, you can quickly and easily make an almost infinite variety of incense. If you're used to working with gum binders, you're going to find that you have to use a lot more wood binder than you would ever dare to use with a gum binder. But you'll also find that you need to use far less base material, so it's a trade-off. For maximum flexibility, I really think it's best that incense makers learn to use both wood binders and gum binders. But if you have to choose just one binder, joss powder is an excellent choice. Well, that's all we have time for in this episode of Incense Magic. If you've enjoyed this video, I hope that you'll visit my website, theincensedragon.com. I also hope that you will subscribe to my YouTube channel. As always, please, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will respond as quickly as I possibly can. Sometimes that's not super fast, but I promise nothing goes unanswered. So until next time, bright blessings.